What's up guys, it's Wilson, also known as Designedbywil, and in today's video we're going to be designing a sort of Halloween collection based on the sort of high school varsity theme. Now to the right of me we got our Notion board open with the colors, references, and I also was planning on designing like just a t-shirt, but I just put in two and two in my head and I was like, this t-shirt's going to take me another 3 hours to even get to the draft of what I would ideally want it to look like. So we just ended up scrapping that and basing the whole collection on this whole varsity slash high school sort of aesthetic. Now the primary reference is Halloween. So we got our colors, we got some sketches, and we got some images of some varsity designs that we can reference or use as a benchmark. The font we're going to be using is DS Feta Gotisch, which I think is translated to DS Fat Gothic in English from German. And since we got the primary base, we're going to start designing the first sort of design for this collection. It's not going to be individual. It's going to be a lot of individual designs that I'm going to be doing first and then placing them into the mock-up. It's around 4, I would say, individual designs, and the rest of them are just there to fill the spaces such as quotes, etc. So let's get straight into the time lapse. Now this letter is going to be the premise of the rest of the design, so it's important that this one takes the most amount of time in sort of creating, so then we can use this as sort of a benchmark for the rest of the designs and use that to flow. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make it look like it's extruding or sort of like a drop shadow, and the way we do that is just by using the blending options and just making a sort of offset, setting that to 90, and then just grabbing the original and placing it on top. The Y2K video has a good explanation of this, so I'm not going to go over it again, but using this method we're able to create a sort of illusion that it's 3D, but it's not really 3D. It's just a drop shadow, sort of to speak, and then make an offset on top of that so it looks a little bit more clean and more cohesive. And then we just repeat this offset until we get it how we want it, and then add some white outlines to detail it all together. On our original sketch, we had a knife going through the sea as the front, so we're gonna recreate that so we can keep the original sketch. One thing I'm trying to teach myself is to stay within a premise so I don't get overwhelmed and start doing random stuff. Even though random stuff is cool, learning to understand how to execute your sketch in the most effective way is a good way to learn design, because once you learn the rules, you can now break them. But breaking them without understanding the rules is what bad design looks like, and I feel like that's what most people are having trouble with. I get a lot of DMs asking like easier ways to do stuff, and I just tell people, hey, I've been doing this for around 6 years. If I don't know where to get the information on how to do something, I literally YouTube it or just Google it, and the answer 99% of the time is there. Before you send anybody a question in DM, ask yourself, can I just Google this and find the answer? And if you can't, you're probably not Googling hard enough, because there's forums and they will explicitly tell you how to solve the problem that you have. This knife is going to be used later on in the rest of the design, so I'm going to spend some time in creating a nice looking knife. I end up not making the line weight heavy enough for the graphic, and it's a disaster, so I have to go back and offset it. But without further ado, let's get straight into the time lapse. Essentially, we're just going to be recreating the steps that we did for the original C. but now we're going to integrate this knife, which makes it a little bit more tricky, especially with the outlines, because this knife is going to be a shape, so there's going to be more outlines to the knife. The one reason why I expand all my shapes is primarily because they get easier to work with, especially when I'm scaling them down and scaling them up. I don't want the lines always changing, but the one downside about expanding it is now if you want to make the weight heavier for the line, you're gonna have to do it a different way, because you can't just bring up the stroke, because that's not gonna work, because it's just filled in shape now. And yeah, I guess it just depends. Pick your poison, I guess. Do you want to keep going back and keep scaling stuff, or do you want to have an easier way to have your object already there, but now you can't scale it? Now that we got our two designs here, these are the two primary designs, we're going to work on sort of a little bit of the emblems and stuff like that. So it's sort of the Killstreak, like different slogans that we can put on the varsity, because varsities tend to have a theme, and without a theme, a varsity won't work. I wanted the aesthetic for this Killstreak to imitate the word kill, so a lot of like blood dripping, or sort of trees like ripping apart, or flesh ripping apart, but without having to use a type. So we're going to be using the lasso selection tool, and we're going to be drawing on top of the letters and then filling them in. And I'm using a drawing tablet for this, so you can't, I guess you can do this with a mouse, but with a drawing tablet it's easier on your wrist, and it's easier to recreate a drawing style without having to mess up your whole hand. But I guess a mouse is good. A mouse I would recommend is the MX Master 3 by Logitech. I've had this mouse for around 4 years now, and I've been using the same mouse for designing forever. It's amazing. Like I said, I'm using the lasso selection tool. If you let go of your selection, it will select whatever. So this is why I hate using this tool. But to make a really like rough sort of outline or drawing, I tend to use this tool because it's the most effective way. Now, the way I got my Photoshop document set up is I have a threshold on top, so I can get the deepest of black, because originally I was just going to edit the actual font and draw into it, like the last video how we did the revision type font with the Gothic letters and we customized it. For this, we're just using these as like a base for placement, and then we're going to be custom drawing everything in. I'm also just going to draw in some little tallies, and then we're just going to grab the whole thing via a screenshot, and we're going to drop it into Illustrator, where we're going to use the threshold to extrude it into a vector shape. So once you got your screenshot, you just want to drag it into your Illustrator file, scale it up as much as you want by holding shift so you don't warp the scale, and then go to Windows, Image Trace, press preview so you can understand what you're doing. Turn up the threshold so it looks a little bit more thick, and that's about it for this one. We want it to look rough, so we're not gonna play around with the settings too much. Press Ignore Y and then expand, and now you have a solid vector of your image trace or your drawing via Photoshop. And the one thing I also did was I just went in and edited these tallies. And also the Killstreak was looking a little bit too sharp, so I went to offset path, set it to round, and set it to 15, so it can look a little bit more blob-ish, sort of like blood, I guess. and then I just grabbed the whole thing and turned it into one path using a pathfinder tool in our properties panel, and I offset that again just to make it a little bit more thick, or to see how thick I could make it so we could get the final look for the Killstreak title. Now, considering the brand name is Cloud9, I took the 9 tallies and put them underneath the Killstreak, so we have that sort of motif or cohesion going throughout the whole design, and placing on the back, so then we can apply the same effect we've done for both C's to this, so it's matching the rest of the design. Like I said, the original C was the premise for the rest of these, so we're just going to recreate the sort of feel for each one, but using a mismatch of the colors, so we can have like different looking designs, but they're very cohesive in terms of color, shape, and outline and aesthetic. We're essentially going to be doing the same thing with the offset to bring everything together. Like I said before, we want to keep the aesthetic that we have with the original C, so the design looks very cohesive, but without making it too much. We're going to be designing one more primary design, so we got 3 designs here just to fill the spaces, and the rest of the stuff is just going to be there to fill the varsity. And with this design, we're going to be tracing hot stuff, but we're going to be adding the knife from our C and keep that cohesion going to bring everything together. So to trace this, instead of going through Photoshop, I'm really trying to force myself to stick within Illustrator within this project, and I'm just using the brush tool, and then I do switch between the pencil tool for some of the tighter areas, and I haven't changed the settings whatsoever, so it's just straight raw brush tool, just tracing it as best as I can until we can get the shape that we have. For the rest of this, I'm just going to be using the shape builder tool to build the fingers holding the knife, so it looks a little bit more cohesive. Like I said before, expanding your shapes, your strokes into shapes does get a little bit technical, and this is what I mean, because if I just had the regular stroke, I could just cut it out. So yeah, just pick your poison. All that's left for this is just to color this design and make the aesthetic fit the rest of the type, so we can get ready to be placing these separate designs onto the mockups. I wanted to add this quote onto the varsity because I see a lot of varsities, they have quotes, or like slogans from the actual university. So I just found this one by Jason, is saying, "You think you're gonna last all summer?" And I just thought that just sounded really cold. So I'm like, yeah, put that on the varsity and all the other mock-ups, because this is gonna be sick. Last thing I did was just add in some other icons just to fill the patches on the side, because most varsities have like the school name or year that they graduated, or even like the year they won the championship on the sides. So I'm like, let me just do that. So yeah, after we got all our designs collected, it was time to place them on the mock-ups using the tech pack that I have on my website, and we're going to be using the new varsity with the collar on there. I really love this Stussy International Varsity, and I like the placement on it, and it was an inspiration for, in terms of color. So they have the white blocking sleeves, so white leather sleeves, but they got like a color blocking for the main body. So I took that for inspiration, but I wanted to keep mine wearable. The one thing I hate about Halloween styled or Halloween themed stuff is it's just a little bit too much Halloween sometimes, so you can't wear it too much, like the Halloween dunks, for instance, or even the Halloween Air Force Ones. I had a pair, they were just like bright orange. I'm like, I'm gonna give these away because I can only wear these one time. So I didn't want to make anything too outlandish. And if you were to make it bright orange or something like that, I was gonna make that the hoodie or something secondary where you can only wear it for a season. For example, for winter, and then you can put it away for summer. So without further ado, let's get straight into developing some mock-ups. Let's get straight into rating these designs. Now, design 1, varsity jacket, I give this one a solid 9 out of 10. I wish I could have done more for the back, and the back was quite lacking, I guess, in terms of style / flavor. Maybe because I'm so used to doing heavy graphics for back pieces. But yeah, other than that, this is a perfect for winter Halloween style aesthetic. It's not doing too much, but yet again, it's not doing too little. For the tracksuit, like I said with the varsity, it's not doing too much and it's not doing too little. The orange is throwing me off again, but it is working really well, and I feel like this would be a really good piece for like gallery department or something like that. Maybe it's because of the sweats, but for this one, I give it a solid 6.5, 7 out of 10. Lastly, we have the hat or fitted cap. I love this fitted cap, and I feel like this would be the best piece in sort of introducing yourself as a brand in terms of like Halloween, because it's not doing too much. It won't be that expensive to produce compared to the sets. And yeah, this one, solid 10 out of 10. But yeah, that will do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed that little collection, and don't forget to always plan out your collections, understand your theme, and understand what you're trying to portray with this sort of collection. Don't rush into the design. If you don't have your name, go back to the drawing board and start refreshing, because there's no need to rush. You got all the time in the world, because most of you guys are within that age range of 18 to 25 to even 30 maybe. Everyone's still very young. Please don't rush. Anyway, I'll see you guys when I see you. Hope you guys have a beautiful day. Love you. Peace.